and here's some of the leftovers from the real world when people still slip in the door as we get started, and we welcome that. We welcome all of you who are here and those of you who are just coming in. I'm Sarah Bon Harper. I'm the Executive Director at Highland, and so a couple of housekeeping items. First, we would like you to keep your mics on mute throughout the event, please. That cuts down on noise on our end. We encourage questions of the participants. Please ask questions in the chat feature, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. I'd like to note, please, that we are recording this event for people who may have missed it. So please be advised about recording. Of course, if you object, you could remain with camera off and non-chatting, but I do need to tell you that. So welcome. It's a real pleasure to have you here and to be working with the IIC and the Charles Center and a wonderful group of students. I'm going to get started sharing my screen here. All right, I trust you can see that. Good. Welcome to the student-focused event, and welcome to One Tribe, One Day 2021. Today we will highlight a collaborative project at William & Mary to engage students in environmental conservation and social justice at Highland. A collaboration between Highland, the Charles Center, and the Institute for Integrative Conservation. These three William & Mary students are leading the development of a proposal throughout this year to enhance opportunities for place-based learning, a real natural use of Highland across our campus setting, and to fully engage this historic property. Today's event will start just briefly with me with an introduction to Highland and an overview of the collaborative project. We'll feature a panel discussion with our three William & Mary students who are leading the effort, and we'll conclude with a reflection from Dan Crystal. Dan is William & Mary's Chancellor Professor of Biology and the Faculty Director of Undergraduate Research, and he will give us his thoughts at the end on the relevance of the Highland proposal to William & Mary goals for undergraduate study. Between the panel and Dan's few minutes at the end, we will have plenty of time to answer your questions. And so we encourage you to let us know what you're thinking about. What would you like to hear a little bit more about? We've saved time for that. Highland is part of William & Mary and has been since 1974. It is, however, located in Central Virginia, where the star is here just outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. Because of its location, it is an off-campus campus of William & Mary, if you will, but it is also a really good place for steady away, but not that far away. And we think that's particularly important right now, recognizing that wider travel and especially international travel is likely to be disrupted for some time to come due to the pandemic. And so we are really glad to be considered an off-campus part of campus and really engaged learning in this way, hands-on learning, is an important part of what we're doing right now at Highland. We are a public historic site. Clearly, we were put on the map because of Highland's ownership once upon a time by President James Monroe, who lived here as his most consistent home in his adult life, including during his presidency. We study the lives of many people and the events of Highland. The individuals include Monroe and his presidency, of course, and his family, and also enslaved people who lived on the property, who are an important part of the story that we tell. We feel that the events of Highland, the people, what happened here, the historical events that are connected to Highland have a real possibility of illustrating important themes of American history. And that by understanding Highland, we're really understanding some of the really important factors that were crucial to America's development during these early years of the 1800s. So we do public interpretation. We put our name on the map recently in terms of archaeology. We made a major discovery that the house that had long been interpreted as a wing of Monroe's presidential home actually was his guest house, and the actual house was preserved underground as a nice set of archaeological remains. And these remains continue to be the focus of archaeological work, and we hope to resume that. We're planning to resume that at the end of next month. So I hope you'll come and discuss with us, and we'll share our discoveries and further the discussion of what happened at Highland. And it's exciting to have a site of this importance that really still has a lot to be discovered. The other really notable part of our work right now that I should mention is the Council of Descendant Advisors. About a dozen descendants of men and women enslaved at Highland are very valued advisors to us. They have an important say on the stories we tell at Highland, on how we approach the world in terms of responses to today's questions, the tone, the words, and even the stories themselves, the way we choose to share history at Highland. The Descendant Advisors meet with a core group of staff monthly, with many conversations in between, and are often they often share responsibility for telling our stories in public, and are really an important component of how we are doing history, if you will, at Highland. So that's another really key feature of our work at the moment. Outside of the core historic area and the site that we know of, with the recently rediscovered house and the recently properly identified standing guest house, we also have about 7 miles of walking trails, rustic trails on the property that open up the 500 plus acres, 535 acres on the ground that now people can explore on their own. With those, we have some interpretive signage to remind people of that other dimension that they may not be thinking of as they walk through the spaces of Highland. And this is, I think, mentioning the rustic trails to me is important, because it opens the idea that we are now newly exploring the wider property and its value for different audiences. And this is the segue into our student panel, where the broader landscape, the historic land itself, now is the subject of our student projects, and the really future-facing identity of Highland with regard to student learning, community engagement, and land justice. So that's where we arrive, and I will stop sharing so you can see the students more, and we're going to turn to their portion of the program. All right, good. So we will hear about the proposals firsthand from each of the students. And Eileen, Melissa, and Grace are all with us here. And I would like to start first by asking you to introduce yourselves. Just tell us a little bit about your name, your year, your major, if you like, your outlook on the world. Eileen, would you like to go first, please?
Yeah, my name's Eileen. I am a sophomore at William & Mary. I'm majoring in government, but I'm considering a potential minor in environmental policy. But I've so far really enjoyed working with the Institute for Integrative Conservation, and I think they're launching a minor next year, so that might be another potential opportunity that I look into. But you know, I'm very passionate about environmental policy and sustainability, so that this project has been really cool for me so far. I can't wait to tell you guys about it.
Thank you. Melissa?
Hello, my name is Melissa Mukuna, and I'm a sophomore. I'm a current government major, and I'm hoping to declare a theater double major in the upcoming weeks. For me, I have been really interested in social justice and seeing the prompt for this project and combining social justice with environmental justice through my work with the IIC has been really illuminating. It's a part of not only campus, but also just real life work that I hadn't seen myself participating in a year ago. And I think it's been a great project in order to study different ways that we can benefit not only the environment, but our local communities in a long lasting and sustainable way. And like Eileen and Grace, I'm also really excited to let you know about our work so far.
Thank you. And then Grace.
Hi, my name's Grace Breitenbeck. I'm a third-year student and will be graduating in December. I'm a biology major, history minor, and I'm hoping to pursue a career in marine science. I was really drawn to this project because as a history minor, I've been spending a lot of time focused on slavery and the repercussions of slavery. And so, this project has a great opportunity to address that. And also, just as part of the William and Mary curriculum, they emphasize an interdisciplinary approach to your studies. And I think that this project is a really cool way to highlight that. And as my coworkers have said, I'm really excited to get to present this to you.
Thank you. And thanks to the three of you. So you're all focusing on different components or different themes of the proposal, right? And what you're working towards, I should give us a little road mapping, is one proposal, which could be a multi-stranded proposal, but one proposal at the end of this work that will present an idea for the Highland campus. And so they're really in the pre-proposal phases now of figuring out what are the important themes, who are the important stakeholders, and how to proceed. So there's some real thoughtfulness going forward into creating what the proposal will be, as well as the contents of the proposal. So I should preface that. So I'd like, if you would, for each of you to talk about the theme or aspect of the proposal that you're leading. And again, as background, we got talking about all of these and several ideas bubbled up. And then the concept was that we divided them out so each student would have a portion that she is leading. So why don't we switch the order? And Melissa, would you care to lead us on this one, please?
Hello. So my portion of the proposal is focusing on environmental justice. And for me, that's been examining different ways that we can expand on Highland's position as an already public-facing property, increase ways that we can engage with the local community within Charlottesville, but also William and Mary students, and work in tangent with the Council of Descendant Advisors in order to benefit a large range of communities socially and environmentally and financially.
Thank you. Yeah, so you're really working at the intersection there of history and environment, and in a very forward-thinking way. Thank you. Grace, can I have you go next, please?
Yeah. So I'm focusing on the educational aspect of Highland. Highland currently offers programming for K-12 students and adult groups. These are virtual at the moment, but have previously taken the form of field trips and tours. Highland also participates in annual events such as Historic Garden Week, a book talk sponsored by the Virginia Festival of the Book, and a day for home educators. I'm hoping to explore opportunities to expand Highland's educational programs based on stakeholder feedback. At the moment, I'm really excited to develop a plan for a Call 300 designated class where William and Mary students can have the opportunity to get hands-on at Highland in the true spirit of place-based experiential learning. But honestly, the sky's the limit. We will be listening to stakeholders, but at the moment, everything's on the table, and I'm really excited to see where it leads.
Thanks, Grace. And Eileen.
Yeah, so I'm working on the environmental sustainability side of things, which is generally like an umbrella concept that applies to both Grace's aspects of the project and Melissa's as well. As you saw from Sarah's pictures, Highland's beautiful and has been, worked historically throughout the years. And so it's really a blank slate in terms of what we can do there. And so, currently Highland's offering, they participate in a bee project, which is like a team effort with other local um, spots. Like I think Monticello does it too, which is about 15 minutes away. And that's to support the stressed bee populations. And then also, as you saw, these rustic trails are beautiful and they provide a space for reflection and for like engagement in the natural environment, which is really cool. But we have plenty of ideas for how we can expand that, and teaming up with the educational side of things and learning sustainable agriculture, which could also help with the environmental justice things by mitigating food insecurity or enabling partnerships with local businesses. Like those kinds of things are really cool opportunities that Highland presents. So I'm kind of trying to make sure that everything that we do moving forward is going to be putting the environment, prioritizing sustainability and making sure that we're being nice, kind to our environment.
Thanks, Eileen. Yes, and I think all three of you have emphasized experiential learning and the importance of place in this work. And I think I also agree that that's part of Highland's real contribution in our campus community. I will also say I do see questions coming in from the chat, and we'll maybe talk about that more at the end. But I did want to shout out to one of our beekeepers who I saw earlier in the waiting room. Leslie Bootery is one of our good friends and volunteer beekeepers. A lot of what we do, including the trails, the maintenance and new sections of the trails, the really big bee project, these are volunteer driven, volunteer led. They're not just volunteer staffed, but they are the vision and creation of talented and enthusiastic volunteers. And we could not do so much of what we do without volunteers. So seeing volunteers and students and our other stakeholders coming together in one place actually is really, it feels very important to me. So I'm glad for that. I would like maybe Eileen to start with this conversation then about stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders involved at Highland, and how are you going to engage them in the development of the proposal?
Yeah, so one thing I think we've all kind of realized as we've been developing this proposal and starting to figure out the directions that we're taking it in is that it is a very fluid and dynamic process. So, as we keep going throughout the summer and as we're developing our proposal and our framework that we're going to present to, ultimately the school at the end of the year, we've just kind of realized that it's going to be a gradually changing list as it grows. But I think our main stakeholders at the moment, Sarah mentioned the Council of Descendant Advisors. It's really important to us that we're working with them and collaborating and making sure that they're part of the conversation as much as anyone, because, we're trying to learn from the past and we're trying to make sure that Highland is at the forefront of this effort to really, emphasize that we're moving toward a brighter future in a better direction. And I think that ultimately is what makes Highland a really unique place, is because it's somewhere where we can learn from the past and move toward the future. So we're really excited to work with them, and we're meeting with them tomorrow, or on Thursday, excuse me, and everyone's excited. We've also talked with Morven, which is a farm run by UVA that is right next to Highland. So especially for mine and for Grace's aspects of the project, they're going to be really, really helpful to have kind of their existing like structures, whether it's because they have places for students to sleep and we don't have that at Highland. So if it's for a Call 300 class, we're going to team up with them and it's going to be great. But then also the local community is going to be really important. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a potential to develop business relationships or other kind of relationships with local communities, local groups. Of course, the schools in the area for people coming to visit for field trips or other things. So I think we're not really sure, who our stakeholders are going to be, what the full list of our stakeholders is going to be at the end of the day, because every time we have a meeting, we kind of think of something new, like, oh, this is another person we need to talk to, or, oh, we should really get their input. But what we do want to emphasize throughout our project is that it is going to be a collaborative effort. And we do want to make sure we're approaching it from all angles and making sure we're like maximizing the benefits for everyone. And, making sure we are emphasizing the notion that Highland is this important place with a important history that we all want to be a part of making better and making the reparations for it.
Thank you. Grace, what is the goal of your collaborative proposal? Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so the goal of our proposal is to make Highland a place where history in the future can be addressed together. We want to engage the stakeholders, as Eileen mentioned, including the Highland Council of Descendant Advisors, to determine how we can combine our three elements: education, sustainability, and social justice into one place. We really want to engage the tribe community with Highland and integrate it into campus life so that it can become as integral to William and Mary as VIMS and the Washington Center and our other kind of off-campus campuses. Highland has the potential to serve as a resource for the broader community, and we just really want to make it a model for integrative conservation, education, and justice.
Thank you. I think every time we talk, I get more impressed, so thank you all. Melissa, turning to you for this question. All of you will be working together this summer to develop this proposal. Can you talk specifically about your approach to proposal development and the work that you see coming up this summer?
Yes, so a big part of our work in creating this proposal has been engaging in constant conversation, not only within our group, but also with relevant stakeholders connected to campus, Highland, and the Charlottesville community. So throughout the summer, we will be working on developing our proposal, which will involve us talking to as many stakeholder groups as we can see ourselves getting into contact with, to work on creating an integrative conservation lab that can benefit as many people, but also make a real contribution in as many fields as possible, not only in environmental justice, but also in education and in sustainability. That the project is really broad, but that also gives us a lot of areas to take that in as many different directions as we see fit. So the work of our proposal will be collecting as many ideas as possible, formulating the feasibility of these different directions for the school and the positives that they can bring, and then trying to get that into a collaborative document between the three of us, which we will work on throughout the summer and also throughout the fall to present a fully completed proposal to the school in late fall, also through a presentation as well.
Thanks for the clear walkthrough of a long-term project. I appreciate that. Eileen, what have you learned about Highland through this project?
I mean, I think we all learn something new about Highland every time we meet again. But I think for me, I've realized a lot about the ways that these kinds of historic sites can serve all of us in the future. I think especially going to school right next to Colonial Williamsburg and being kind of surrounded by historic properties and history all the time, you see how important it is to learn and understand the past. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Highland represents a really unique opportunity to do that, but also with our proposal, like look toward the future and not just have it be something that's only about history, but also about the future and moving forward and learning and understanding. And I think Highland, from every conversation we have with you, Sarah, and every time we talk about what's currently going on at Highland, it's really clear that Highland is doing its very best to already work toward this. So us coming in and developing this proposal, I think we all came in thinking, oh, okay, like time to shake things up. But there were so many things that were already in place that are so great, especially with your close relationship with the Council of Descendant Advisors. So really what we're doing is coming in and just seeing how we can kind of like extend the existing structures into connecting it more to William and Mary, which is really exciting. But I think my favorite thing I've learned about Highland is just how many things are already going on there that should be absolutely happening at every historic property that's, with a similar history. And so I think that's really awesome.
Thank you. Back to Melissa for a second here. How has your engagement in this proposal enhanced your William and Mary experience?
For me, I believe that just getting involved with a section of the school, not only Highland, but the Institute of Integrative Conservation, is not something I would have seen myself doing just a few months ago. I think that when I had found the website where you could volunteer for different research projects, I was just immediately drawn to this idea of getting to work not only within a new section of the school, but also being able to work within Highland and learn about its connection to William and Mary and get to strengthen that in a way that could benefit not only the students, but also the people living in the area. I think that that has been such a big part of not only this year, but an experience that I will just appreciate throughout the rest of my working career, because that sort of hands-on interaction with so many groups is something that I love the ability to do as a government major. And also being able to connect with so many people connected to the Institute of Integrative Conservation has enhanced my experience. Just coming into this project was something that was rather different from what I already studied at the school, but I think that sort of just enhanced my knowledge as a student, being able to work in a different field and learn how I can take knowledge from my work as a government major and apply that to a different field of just real life work has been really illuminating. And it's something that I think will just make me a better candidate in the work field once I graduate, but also a member of the student body.
Thank you. Thanks for that thoughtful answer. I'd like to turn to Grace and ask sort of maybe a two-part, if you can. If you have anything to add to that about enhancing your William and Mary experience by this process and project. And then if I can throw the second part at you all at once, why do you think William and Mary students are interested in getting more involved at Highland? And again, if there's time, the others, I'm happy to do a multi-answer here. So if you wouldn't mind those two parts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Melissa covered a lot of why this is such a cool project to be working on. But I think it's a really, really great opportunity to be able to work hands-on with professors. A lot of schools don't emphasize the relationship between faculty and students. But I think that's one of the major assets of William & Mary is how much contact and just kind of side-by-side partnership that the students are able to have with our professors. And I think that makes a huge difference in the quality of our education. I feel that I've really gotten to know the professors and I've gotten to work with them, and that's expanded my viewpoint in terms of academics, in terms of career choices, and just really enhanced my life at William & Mary. So that's been really cool, and I'm excited to continue with that on this project. And then as for why students would be interested in getting involved with Highland, I think that our students are extremely passionate about justice and sustainability. And Highland offers an opportunity to work with both in the same place. One thing I've learned is that given the opportunity, William and Mary students are among the most engaged that I have just ever met. And they will jump at the opportunity to put their values into action. And I think once we increase communication and just general awareness about Highland, students will jump at the opportunity to, learn there, to work there, to assist with reparations and sustainability.
Thank you. Eileen or Melissa, would you like to add to that at all?
I think Grace said it all.
That's a good answer. Melissa, anything to add on top of such a good answer?
I think I'm inclined to agree. That was fantastic.
Okay, thanks. So I would like each of you to answer, if you would, maybe starting with Melissa. What is your long-term vision for Highland? And to make it a big question, to go ahead and think about its complexity. Why were you interested? I heard a little bit about your interest in the first place, but what is the most interesting thing then, drawing from the last question about student engagement and social justice at Highland? So just give us some long-term vision and some highlights, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yeah, so for me, my long-term vision of Highland is that it develops into this hub not only of environmental research, but also social justice, and provides a space for students to get involved in creating a source of community engagement. I think that is the biggest goal for me, not only in the specific objectives that I'm personally looking towards, whether that be collaboration with Morven and collaboration with the Council of Descendant Advisors and food banks in the local area, but also creating a space where students can see how academia can bring about real world change and engagement. My hope for Highland is that it not only becomes this hub where environmental justice can really flourish, but it also starts conversations on environmental justice, especially in spaces with historic ties to the beginning of our country, and how we can protect the historical importance of these sites while also recognizing that these sites are in the future and that they can be forward facing and they can engage with not only the descendants of those who were forced to work on the property, but also those who are nearby, and become an asset to its present, as well as a snapshot of the past. And I think that applies not only to Highland, but also William and Mary. We see how a place that is rooted in a colonial past can still engage with the present today, engage with local communities and aid them. And I think that Highland being an example of that sort of connection with the past, the present, and the future is something that can apply to many different sites across the East Coast of the United States. And I would love to see Highland be not only at the forefront of these conversations, but leading by example, so we can see how these sites can benefit people in a much broader way than we might have thought before. And this is all work that Director Bon Harper has already been doing. So I'm really excited to see that be applicable not only in Highland, but to other places in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. I like your vision of building a model for really kind of the relevance of history and thinking about the future. So thank you for that. Eileen, would you like to talk about long-term vision and what is most interesting?
Yeah, to build off what Melissa said, as I've been doing my own research on sustainability and the university's sustainability goals, one of the ways William and Mary really likes to describe our campus in Williamsburg is this living laboratory. They a place where we do research and it's full of lifelong learners, and we're bold and we're the tribe, and everything you always hear and you always think about William and Mary. But what stuck out to me the most was this concept of a living laboratory. And I think that's really applicable to Highland, because it's somewhere, as we've said this whole panel, it's somewhere where it's going to continue to change, and it's going to be a dynamic laboratory where research can happen and innovation can happen and learning can happen. And it's really aligned with the values of the university as somewhere where, you know, lifelong learners can go and lifelong learners can explore, whether it's on the trails or the archaeology sites. So I think what I'm most excited for is just the opportunity for the unexpected to happen there. You know, it could be somewhere where there's a cool ecotourism spot nearby or on the property, but it also could be somewhere where someone discovers something really cool about a new native species that hadn't been discovered. You know, there's just a lot of opportunity at Highland, which is just the most exciting thing for me. And I think we all will share that opinion because I think we're all learning new things about it every time we're engaging in our research and trying to figure out our plans. So
thank you. Yeah, I certainly share that. And Grace, go ahead here on your long-term vision and maybe what's most interesting about your portion or about any portion of the work.
I think Eileen and Melissa covered a lot of what I had to say, but I think it's important to note that we are at a moment in time where we're really able to examine our historical narratives. And Director Bonharper, you and the rest of the Highland team have done such an incredible job of uncovering Highland's history, you know, really trying to delve into what the real truth of Highland is and engaging with the Descendant community. And so I'm really excited to help create an integrative experience at Highland with strong ties to the William and Mary community. I really hope that Highland can become a nationally recognized place where we can foster inclusive lifelong learning for people of all walks of life, not just students, but you know, all members of the community, and where we can engage with the past while proceeding to examine the future of social and environmental justice. And like Eileen said, there are just so many opportunities with Highland, and I'm so excited to explore them.
Thank you. And thank you all sincerely for this not only your thoughtful work this semester so far, but your thoughtful discussion here. And I'm glad to hear these ideas that you're bringing forth in this setting. So thank you. I think at this point we can turn to some audience questions. I'm going to sort of do the easy thing and go backwards from what's on my screen. I'm going to go to Mark's question. Thank you and thank you saying that, Marco, for saying that this is an outstanding project, and I appreciate that. And shout out to my colleagues, Erica Garut and Dan Crystal here, even though I've been doing a lot of the talking. And if any or all of the students could share their insights on this kind of experiential learning opportunity, how it complements and rounds out in-class research and coursework. Is there anyone who would like to take that?
I can take that. I think it's so amazing to be able to put what we've learned more in theory in classes into actual action. You know, in classes, we spend a lot of time learning theories, learning ideas and concepts, and having discussions. But it's very rare for us to be able to take that information and those ideas and turn it into something that has real world applications. And so I think that this project and just in general experiential learning is a way for us to have action and be able to do the things that we're learning about, which is just invaluable for, you know, life skills, job skills, and just really enhances our experience as students. And I think that our project will hopefully enable Highland to be a place where many more students, both current and future, will be able to have that hands-on opportunity that we're getting through this research.
Thank you. Another question from the audience, and I thank Brooke Weinman for this. Do we know if any other universities in the US have such a rich collaborative historic project along the lines of Highland? the Highland William and Mary project. And she comments that what is being done is relevant on so many levels. So thank you for that. And does any of you want to take this?
I can take, I mean, I don't know of any universities specifically that are doing exactly this. I do know of various projects going on at various schools that are, you know, vaguely similar or at least tackling some aspects of what we're trying to do. I know Georgetown is leading an effort to really uncover the people that were enslaved there and learn more about their history and their identities, which is something that's currently going on at Highland. I know like I said, UVA runs a farm, Morven, right next door. So they're doing similar things in the field of sustainability and sustainable agriculture. So, you know, they're similar, but I think this is the only project that I know that's like so interdisciplinary, which I think to go back to Mark's question before, I think that's something that makes this really a very unique opportunity that we're really happy to be involved in, because it's something that it's a lot of responsibility and it's a lot to take on, especially when you think about the long-term impact that it could potentially have. So, you know, I don't know if other schools are having it, but I certainly do know that it's something that makes William and Mary, and especially the new Institute for Integrative Conservation, really, really special. So, you know, that's
Thank you. Yeah. I think just the many components that I think you approached that very well, Eileen. You know, the historic component, the environmental component, the student engagement, all resting on an established public interface is a pretty big thing. It feels kind of like a hat trick to be actually here talking about doing that. And I'm not sure that there's an exact model that someone else is already doing, but it's fun to be exploring. Let's see, Karen Wolf's question, and thank you, Karen, for it. Could you all talk about how working on these issues at Highland might make you think different about, might make you think about different or other historically interpreted spaces you know and or have visited? Sorry, I read that very poorly, but about how working on these issues at Highland, thinking differently about other historically interpreted spaces that you know or have visited.
I can take this one.
Thank you.
So for me, I think that a major space that I've been reinterpreting has been the College of William and Mary, actually. I think that when looking at these places that are so, I suppose, just old in the grand space of American history, it's really interesting to see how our history is both a really important part of the foundation of the school, but also how that history can be built upon. So it's not so much entrenched in this very specific snapshot, but as any part of the world today has been built on and has evolved and developed, so that what was one specific thing or one specific place has now a variety of different impacts and meanings to many more people. And I think that looking at Highland has been really interesting, just in light of not only the way that we think about historic places, but also, if I may add, the petition that was signed a few months ago, considering the way that these narratives do overlap and how Highland is really not just any one thing, I think just applies to many historic places around the country. And so in working on this project, it's been really interesting to note how the school, which means something very specific to me, it's the place where I get my education, it's where I learn, it gives me the foundation to go throughout the world, but also just given me conversations and ways to work with so many people, has been dramatically changed from perhaps its earliest beginnings, who it was catered to and who it benefited. And I think that Highland has just been really interesting for me to sort of situate present day in the ways that we interpret these different spaces and how that doesn't necessarily override its past, but these are two things that do simply coexist because of the fact that they're here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Melissa. Let's see. We have plenty of questions here, so pardon me as I'm looking through. How do we envision William and Mary students working with students from UVA? Now, certainly in our discussion of stakeholders, I know UVA students have come up, and I wonder whether any of our students feels that she'd like to address this. If not, I certainly can.
I think I can address it a little bit, just specifically as it relates to working with Morven and collaborating with them, because basically the program that they have in place is they have a sustainable farm there. It's not certified organic, but I think most of their practices are considered organic. I'm not totally sure, but and so they hire student interns who come a few times a week. UVA is like roughly 15 minutes away, I think, right, Sarah? So they come a few times a week and work, and they get like class credit for it. And some of that food goes to their dining halls, and some of it goes toward farmers markets that they have on campus. And it's just a way to enhance their learning. It's something that UVA has adopted to, complement their environmental studies program and everything. So I think the way, and maybe Grace can speak to this a little more, because it also relates to her kind of aspect of education, because as we're developing this core, whether it's the Call 300 course or just, students coming to participate in research or sustainable agriculture, working with UVA students will probably take on a similar form that they all have already had, where we'll kind of find a pretty small group, and they'll go and they'll learn at the same time as the students. I think it's cool because William and Mary is emphasizing collaboration, and recently we signed a carbon neutrality goal with UVA, where we've both determined to be carbon neutral by 2030. And that's something that is going to be a collaborative effort between the two universities. And I think it's pretty symbolic thinking about moving forward into the world, like we should be collaborating. And as William and Mary students, we're encouraged to collaborate, and we're encouraged, whether it's a group project or this project, like we do place a high emphasis on the ability to work as a team and work as a tribe. And so I think envisioning how it's logistically going to go, is going to depend on how the plan ends up shaking out. But I do think, especially because Morven specifically already has this set program of student interns, and they have like kind of their curriculum and the jobs that each student does and their routines, I think we'll probably aim to kind of mimic that. It'll definitely, again, involve a collaborative effort, involve ongoing conversations with them as a stakeholder in our plan. So, who knows how it's logistically going to go, like I said, but I think it's something that is going to be cool moving forward, because it's a chance for us to meet students from a new school that we don't know, and they have different experiences than us, and we can learn from them and they can learn from us. So I think that's another thing that makes this proposal really cool.
Absolutely. If I may jump in and add a little bit from an education point of view, I think, we want to emphasize that Highland is a resource for William and Mary students as a William and Mary owned, property. However, we want it to be something that extends its outreach beyond just the tribe community, but to local communities and other colleges. And I think that in the true spirit of justice, you don't want to isolate Highland as a William and Mary only entity. We want to make it so that we are having those collaborations, and we are, having the discussions and the interactions with a wide variety of people, which, includes UVA students.
Thank you. I think really one of the crystallizing pieces here is that we're thinking across all kinds of boundaries, and we're thinking beyond the patterns of what has been done or what is being done elsewhere. And I think there's no equal to that kind of thinking, and I'm just glad to be involved with this collaborative bunch of people. I'm going to take my prerogative for 2 seconds and answer. I see that there's several questions we have not answered, and I apologize that we're not going to get to everybody, but I do see one where someone says, how can alumni, parents, and the broader William & Mary community get involved in the Highland project? And I do want to say that, as you can see, we are casting a broad net for collaborators, for stakeholders, for just people willing to discuss the future and the meaning of the past as it exists in the future. So I think what I'll do there is I will put my contact information again in the chat and have you, contact me. We can put you on the newsletters for the various units at William & Mary that are working on this project. And we will just keep a list of names of people who would like to somehow be involved. We'd like to hear from you. We would like to, include all the ideas, all the interested parties who would like to be stakeholders here. So I'll put my information in the chat so that you can reach out to me, and I'd be glad to disseminate with our colleagues here. So at this point, with not a moment to spare, I'm going to turn you over to our valued colleague here, Dan Crystal, for your words and your reflections. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. And I'm not even going to attempt to answer any of the specifics about this project because the three students just did such a great job with that. I couldn't possibly do better. I'm going to pull out for a minute and talk about undergraduate research at William & Mary and then connect with this project. So I am the director of undergraduate research, which is a new position. I'm also a biology professor, and I've been doing research with hundreds of undergrads for 25 years. So that's my perspective on this. I believe that William & Mary does undergraduate research better and more of it per capita than any other university or college. That's hard to prove, but that is my firm belief. And the reason starts with just the size of our institution, because colleges to universities span a very wide range, and small colleges have lots of attention from professors to students, but the professors are teaching lots of classes and giving all that attention, and they don't have time to do a lot of research. So at those small colleges, you don't have a tremendous amount of undergraduate research, or not at the impactful level that we're doing it. Now, at big universities, research reigns. There's tons of research, so much research. But the faculty are not really rewarded for doing research with undergraduates, which can be less efficient than doing it with graduate students. So William & Mary, we just happen to be right in the middle, where we have lots of really talented undergraduates, lots of faculty doing research, and very few graduate students to help with that research. And so faculty like to do research with undergraduates, and they come here for that, and they stay here for that reason. So it's not an accident that a project as cool as this one is happening here, as multidisciplinary, and eventually will have tentacles all over the university, I'm sure. So that's my little plug for why William & Mary, why the undergraduate research is happening here. And why is undergraduate research a good thing, and why should you come to a university where that's happening? Well, as you've just heard so eloquently, it allows students to do things that put into practice what they're learning in the classroom, which is the absolute best way to really solidify that learning. Also, it prepares them for careers in such a way that you could never do in the classroom, because the stakes are much higher in research that impacts the real world, especially on a project like this. I'm sure that Grace and Melissa and Eileen are thinking in the back of their minds when they're going to make decisions about what to recommend for the energy development, the educational development, or whether this site could be used for reparations for slavery. These are things that could actually happen. the decisions that they make could actually change the lives of other people. And that's true for much of undergraduate research. Whether those other people are researchers around the world who are going to follow up on your work, or medical practitioners who are going to put it into practice, research, when done in a real way, is a much scarier prospect, and therefore a much more valuable learning experiences as far as I'm concerned. So what the students said about experiential learning, what Grace said about experiential learning being very valuable, experiential learning also takes many forms. And when it takes the form of doing research that's actually going to change people's lives in some way, or has that potential to not just generate knowledge but change lives, that's a much bigger deal. And I think that's the experience that students should have when they're doing undergraduate research. And a project like this, where people from every different discipline could find a toehold to do something. They could be looking for endangered lichen on the sides of the trees, or they could be working on state mandated reparations for slavery, or they could be figuring out how William & Mary and UVA could meet their carbon neutrality goals. These are real experiences that will be much more impactful than just thinking and discussing those issues in class. Also, just if you think about what college students are really energized about right now, Highland's got it all. You've got social justice, all of Sarah's fantastic archaeology work that's causing us to basically deconstruct the whole history of this site and figure out what was really happening. You've got a blank slate for how to interpret this, not a totally blank slate, but a partially erased slate to try to interpret what's even happening there, and our understanding of its role in the history of this country. So, and then climate change. This could be a site where it could have a major impact on William & Mary's ability to become carbon neutral and to make a contribution to climate change. So these are the things that students are thinking about now, and we haven't even begun the work. So, and conservation of a single place that you love, or that you learn to love because you've been there, that also can be a very valuable outcome here. So what Erica likes to refer to as place-based learning. So learning about problems at a site, a living case history, instead of just one that you read about in books. That we have going on here. I see tremendous potential for this to be a model for other universities to follow, and something that future generations of our students will be benefiting from, this pioneering work of our three astronauts here going out into this new space. So I'm very, very excited about this, and I fully expect that there'll be 10 times as many students involved in a few years. But it's all going to depend on Eileen and Melissa and Grace's start and how well that goes. And we owe a real debt to Sarah Bon Harper, who's been carrying on quietly in the satellite campus for years, not really getting as much attention from the rest of campus as she should have been. And now I think the time has come for all of us. And if any of you in the audience are intrigued by this, you should go to Highland's website and check out what's going on there, and make a contribution if that's why you're here today at One Tribe, One Day. So undergraduate research is the hallmark of a William & Mary education, and I think that Highland, might be the ultimate hallmark of undergraduate research at William & Mary someday, from what I've seen already from the early results here. And I will end there. And thank all of you, and especially the students. You did a great job of really explaining what you're doing.
Thank you. And I'll just extend my thanks to Dan. Certainly the richness of this project and the larger conversation that we're having here wouldn't be happening without you, without Erica and our partners at the IIC. Having been working on our satellite campus for some time now, really having this collaborative engagement on campus is enriching and rewarding in ways far beyond what I could do from my seat here. And that means collaborators on campus, Dan, Erica, and others who are here listening. And thank you for all that you do. With this, I think you see in the chat some of our giving codes if you would like to support us. Your gifts are always very much appreciated, although are not the only way that you can support us. You can support us by continuing to follow what we do, each of our entities, by continuing to encourage the work that the IIC, the Charles Center, these amazing undergraduate students are doing. By signing up for our newsletters. I know Highland is at the bottom of our webpage. On each page, you just go to our homepage, highland.org, and you can sign up. We don't spam you with a lot of email. We don't have a big enough staff to write that many emails. So go ahead and sign up for our newsletter, and we promise not to fill up your inboxes. I see Erica has put in the student conservation research proposal presentations tomorrow. Grace, Melissa, and Eileen, among other students. If you can even imagine such things, there are other students working in parallel tracks, working on other equally awesome projects. So tune in and learn more about the great undergraduate research that's been going on. I feel like I understand better from Dan's comments why that is, why William & Mary is exceptional in undergraduate research. So just thank you all for being here, for your interest, for your engagement, for your great questions and your kind words. And thank you, Grace, Melissa, and Eileen.